next piece in this series is a bit of a gem. This is Alexander Glazunov's Rêverie for horn and piano, opus 24. Glazunov was a bit of a child prodigy, his first symphony being premiered when he was only 16, and he studied many instruments, including the horn with Theodor Franke, the principal horn of the St Petersburg Opera Orchestra. Shostakovich, a student of Glazunov's at the St Petersburg Conservatory, provides us not only with an impression of Glazunov's skills as a horn player, but also a cautionary tale to anyone considering goading a conductor. The backstory is that Glazunov was conducting one of his own compositions in the UK, and according to Shostakovich, the British orchestra members were laughing at him. They thought he was a barbarian and probably an ignoramus and so on, and they began sabotaging him. The French horn player stood up and said that he couldn't play a certain note because it was impossible. The musicians heartily supported him, but here's what Glazunov did. He silently walked over to the horn player and took his instrument. The stunned musician didn't object. Glazunov took aim for a while and then played the required note, the one that the British musician insisted was impossible. The orchestra applauded, the insurrection was broken, and they continued the rehearsal. Glazunov wrote a number of works incorporating the horn. The Rêverie is probably the most famous. Composed and published in 1890, it is a short but undeniably emotionally romantic work. This is the instrument I've chosen for the Rêverie. I was told that this instrument is thought to be from the 1880s. The bell is inscribed with the name Julius Zimmermann, St Petersburg, and given the script, it is certainly pre-revolution. It doesn't look like any of the designs in the Zimmermann catalogue from 1911, so it's quite possible that this is late 19th century, so perfect for this. And I would love to play Tchaikovsky's symphonies and ballets on this nice instrument. It has a fixed lead pipe and came with a tuning slide that pitches the instrument into E flat, but I've had this F tuning slide built for me by Roy Cox, as these instruments were commonly made with both options. The Zimmermann firm was founded in St Petersburg in 1876 by German-born Julius Heinrich Zimmermann. They produced all types of instruments and published music. Initially, Zimmermanns were importing instruments from the Saxon town of Markneuenkirchen, a place famous for the quality of its instruments, but they also produced instruments themselves. By the turn of the century, they had many branches, including Moscow, Leipzig, London and Riga. But after the Russian Revolution of 1918, when life became very difficult for musicians or anyone with links to Germany, the Zimmermann's firm in Russia was nationalized as the Leningrad Musical Wind Instrument Factory, later St. Petersburg Musical Wind Instrument Factory. Russian music of the late 19th century was greatly influenced by both German and French schools of music, and this instrument pairs beautifully with the Erard grand piano we used for this recording. Returning to the legacy of Dennis Brain, this is a work that we know Dennis performed, but I would also point listeners to the 1924 recording of this work by his parents, Aubrey on horn and Marion on piano, which can be found on YouTube. One last note about an aspect of performance practice in this recording. There is a well-known challenge in the last 4 bars of this work. The horn part has a tied note, an E flat, that goes from being stopped to open midway through the note. According to the most recent Henle edition of this piece, Glazunov's pen manuscript includes that tie, but it was subsequently crossed out in blue crayon. However, printed editions either ignored this correction or it was overruled somewhere in the process, and thus included the tie, making life extremely tricky for us horn players. The eminent horn player, Friedrich Rêverie, has recounted how, when studying in Leningrad in the late 1950s with Vitaly Bernovsky, she was taught that, according to the Russian tradition of the time, this tie was known to be an error. It does seem to me to be an unusual and needlessly complex bit of horn writing, and thus I've chosen to play using the approach cited by Rêverie and suggested by the manuscript correction. Now, if Glazunov was still alive, he would be more than welcome to take the instrument out of my hands and show me what the correct approach could be.